Good afternoon and welcome to the RegTech Association's RegTech Edge No Borders program on regulatory compliance solutions. My name is Nathan. I am the Partnerships and Member Manager here at the RTA and your host for today's event. In the spirit of reconciliation, the RegTech Association acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. In acknowledging country, we honour the resilience, wisdom and innovative spirit of Indigenous communities. We had our housekeeping up on the screen before we kicked off, but if you have any questions for our speakers today, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll just ask our presenters to jump in there and keep an eye on that and answer any of those questions directly. Let's jump into it. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker of today, Tim Phillips, who will give us an overview of the regulatory compliance landscape. Tim is the Executive Chairman of Identity and its subsidiary, Boundary, based in Brisbane. He has extensive experience in financial crime consulting and regulatory technology, advising startups in the Asia Pacific on AI technologies to combat financial crime. Previously, Tim was with Deloitte, where he served as the inaugural global leader of Deloitte Analytics and was also a regulator and a director of enforcement with the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. Thank you, Tim. I will spotlight you and hand it over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully there's not too much background noise. Unfortunately, I'm sitting in an airport lounge and the volume of activity seems to increase as the wine is flowing at this time in the afternoon, but it's a little bit noisier. I just wanted to touch on a favourite subject of mine, which is what I refer to as the democratisation of RegTech and compliance. And what I mean by that is what's happening increasingly is there's been both an expansion of the accountability expectations, what regulators expect industries and businesses to perform, and the demand for technology to support that. Even today, actually, I was looking through the numbers that Nathan gave us, just in who's attending today, and about 40% of everyone in here today are from what I would say not the big end of town. They're industries and sectors that are more broadly spread than you would have expected in the last few years. And so that's really reflecting, I think, what is a shift in the overall landscape. There's also been a change, at least in my perspective, from what we're seeing the regulators do. So in the past, there's been a very big focus on very large organisations, and that's changing. There's been some new law coming through. You'll have all heard about that and probably deep in working out how you're going to deal with some of those. But equally, there's been a real shift in the way the regulators focus on regulatory targets. And in my circumstance, I can tell you that, for example, the regulators have started to look at organisations, the pubs and clubs in the gaming industry. And yet those sectors have been regulated in under tranche one for more than a decade, but there's never been a focus. And so that's really changing the landscape. What that means is there's an expectation on those industries, lots of them, non-bank lenders, tranche two and others, which is the same level of accountability, the same level of expectations, but as we know, not the same budgets. So it's quite a challenge for those organisations to deal with it, and that's where I think the new mandate for RegTech is starting to appear. The markets are really clamouring, those in those small to medium enterprises, for products and capabilities that are much more fit for purpose. So not just really big enterprise solutions, the $100,000, $1 million, $100 million solutions, but actually things that are affordable, accessible, and actually deployable by small to medium enterprises. That's a real change in the market. And while some of that is very traditional, consulting, structure, advice, legal advice and so on, a lot of it is also moving to the technology. How do you how do you adapt, acquire technology which will support the operations of your business? And you're going to hear that, I think, now from the teams Leap Expert, Bluline, Persona, DHI, AI, LexisNexis, and so on, who are all, and MCO, let me not forget them, who are all looking at product which is much more capable of delivering services to those smaller organisations, effectively right-sizing the solution, making sure it meets the level of risk and the size of the entity. So that democratization is something that's occurring very commonly. There's a lot of demand, and I think you'll hear a lot about that today. So with that, Nathan, that's my views. Let's hand over to back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Let me bring the slides back, and we'll jump straight back into our presenters for today. First up, we have Philip from Leap Experts. Let me bring that over there for you, spotlight you, and the floor is yours, Philip.
Thanks, Nathan. And appreciate the time to discuss regulatory compliance solutions for Leap Experts. So next slide, please. So I thought the easiest way to explain what we do is quote one of our customers. So Glencore is one of the largest natural resource companies in the world, over 230 billion revenue, operates in over 30 countries. So they were looking for a solution to enhance their communication surveillance of high-risk employees, executives, and so forth. So they decided, obviously, on Leap Expert as a communications platform, which allows them to use ephemeral messaging. So ephemeral messaging is messages that disappear, which is one of the trademarks of instant messaging, your WhatsApps, your Signals, your iMessage, and Telegram, and so forth. But to use these applications for real-world business and transactions. Next slide, please. So really at the core of our business, we're a communication platform focused on the instant messaging apps. So regulatory compliance is key to what we do, along with the record keeping, security, and privacy that's required. So as you see on the left-hand side, all different types of access or interfaces an employee uses, typically the most popular one being Microsoft Teams. And through our platform, they can communicate with their customers, their business partners, suppliers, contractors who are using their preferred messaging apps. Now, several days ago, we launched our latest iteration of the Leap Experts communication platform 3.0. And from there, we added additional added value, such as voice. So from WhatsApp, you can make a WhatsApp call as a customer, and it reaches your service provider, your relationship manager, your account manager in their Microsoft Teams. So again, making sure all the calls are secure and recorded where necessary. But you see in the bottom left there, highlighted, there's two new modules we call communication workflows and Leap Expert Signals. So our customers are demanding more productivity and using the latest technology and beyond regulatory compliance. Next slide, please. So for the two new modules, communications workflows, this allows our customers to orchestrate and automate real-time conversations with clients. So our customers can build independently and deploy different types of workflows and use cases, such as identity verification, authentication, even order placements and confirmations, requesting for privacy and consent collection, and much more. And this is all done through the preferred messaging channel of the customer. These are simple tools that they can configure, and these workflows can be launched in hours rather than days. And the result is faster decisions, reduced risk, and seamless governance with all the native messaging app experience. And secondly, we have Leap Expert Signals, which is what we call our communication data intelligence. So turning all these everyday company-wide conversations and relationships into actionable data. So detecting topics, sentiments, and trends in potentially hundreds of thousands of chats and surfacing what the client needs. Is it an emerging challenge? Is it a revenue opportunity? Is it a risk to the business? So we enable smarter data-driven decisions with our latest modules. Next, please. And just a bit of background about Leap Expert. We recently opened our newest office in Estonia in Europe this year. We continue to serve all types of clients, from top tier investment banks and global banks and commodities firms to small investment managers of less than 10 employees. But key to that is our partnerships. So we have partnerships with technology leaders and regulatory solutions across the industry. We're also very proud of how we've won recognition and awards. Now 2 years recognized as a visionary in Gartner's new Magic Quadrant for data, digital communications, governance, and archiving. Of course, we have Microsoft credentials. We're available in the Microsoft Marketplace, and we've won numerous awards this year for communication as a platform. Next slide, please. So really just wanted to thank you for your time, wishing you all happy holidays. If you want to find out more as a customer or a partner, please feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Philip. Perfectly on time. Next up, we have Aidan from Bluline.
Thanks for that, Nathan, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about remediation. So my name is Aidan Carlton, and I'm from Bluline, and we automate remediation. So we'll just skip on to the next slide. So what is remediation? So not everyone is completely familiar with this, but this is essentially correcting the financial harm that has been caused to current and past customers of financial services. This could be due to errors in systems or regulatory breaches, misconduct by those organizations, which on the face of it and from the outside sounds pretty straightforward. It's we've mischarged a fee or we've charged an incorrect interest rate. We'll put that back into the customer's account and then we should be done. But unfortunately, it gets a lot more complicated than that. So I'll skip to the next slide. So when we're dealing with remediation, you have to also factor on knock-on impacts. Has the customer gone into arrears and there's been additional fees that have been impacted? What's the value of the calculation of the interest? Sorry, what's the calculation of the cost over time? So bringing that to a net present value. Also dealing with customers that no longer bank or are with the institution. So that means trying to find additional information, dealing with joint account holders, complex entities, trusts, also managing things like deregistered companies, deceased accounts, fraudulent customers, collecting third-party data, performing reasonable endeavors to make sure that we do get customers their money back if we can. So this ultimately causes significant complications in the process. So if we skip to the next slide, ultimately that means that this work is done with a lot of spreadsheets, which is banking's favorite tool. We often see tens of spreadsheets being used by teams that are doing this, which is extremely time consuming. And it requires a number of rounds of manual QA, manual testing to make sure that you get it right. And as a result, a lot of remediations are taking longer and longer. They take sometimes over 12 months and sometimes more than that. If we skip to the next slide. But it's not just a matter of being slow. There's also a significant issue with when you are manually handling these systems, they are going to make mistakes and you're going to have significant compliance breaches. There are potential issues to having to re-remediate incidents, and we're seeing a number of fines, a number of incidents that are coming up through the regulators. And a lot of the larger banks and some of the second tier banks are being stung by this recently. So we'll skip to the next slide. So what we do at Bluline is try to provide an end-to-end automated remediation platform. So what does that mean? We have 3 stages, which is enrich, lodge, and complete. We start off with calculating at a transaction level. We'll go through the customer's go through the client's transaction level information to tease out exactly who and how much a customer was impacted, bringing that value to current date, calculating withholding tax impacts, any knock-on fees, determining the compensation or interest, but also who are the actual impacted customers. We then pass this through into the lodgement phase, and this is making sure that we can actually pay those customers back. So we find out whether or not those accounts are joint accounts, whether they're closed accounts, do they have alternate payment accounts that we can send payment to, collecting data from third-party providers to make sure that we get the most up-to-date information on them. And performing compliance checks like deceased estates, deregistered, fraud, sanctions, frozen asset. There's a list of about 20 different types of compliance checks that get performed on each customer, with the ultimate view of generating communications for those customers. So the system will render emails and letters and other communications out to those customers, outlining exactly what has happened and all the information about the payment, whether they're receiving a payment, and then actually assign the payment. That payment assignment can go to the actual account holder, or it can go to a third party if need be. And then we go through a reasonable efforts process to provide a customer portal for those customers who can't receive. We don't have enough information to actually make the payment, so there's a digital portal which they can provide payment instructions. So I'll skip on to the next slide. So we've had some significant results where we've reduced what takes months or years down to 4 weeks, saving millions of dollars and remediating multiple millions of customers within Australia. So I'll skip to the next slide, thanks. So that's a really high-level view. If you want to reach out and have a chat about remediation, we love to talk about it. But thanks for the time.
Thanks, Aidan. Next up, we have Ken from DHI AI.
Thanks, Nathan. Hello, everybody. My name is Ken Rodricks. I am the co-founder and CEO of DHI. Next slide, Nathan. And in this slide, I'm going to very quickly tell you about our proposition. We are an Australian-based AI company, and our specialty is really about data extraction and analysis using AI. Now, there's 3 key things here that we want you to take note of. The first one is data means structured and unstructured data. So it could be financial, non-financial data, and the focus is really on unstructured data sets, not just numbers. And the second one is accuracy, that it's accurate and that the extraction is, because it's AI, we can pull out a lot of different things accurately. And the third one is it's repeatable. Now, on the right, you'll see some of the organizations that we have worked with, or we work with currently, just to give you a flavor of some of the people that we work with. Next slide, Nathan. Now, I thought it might be probably better to use a case study to explain how we do things and what we do. So in this case, the client is a major stock exchange in Asia, and the challenge that they were facing is there was a lot of information that was embedded in reports, in financial information, in news media, that it was very difficult to extract, and they had to manually look at things and read things on a day-to-day basis. And the challenge there was to keep up with the information, which impacted their accuracy and efficiency of surveillance. So if you go to the next slide, this is how we approach that challenge with our platform and our solution. So firstly, the platform will extract the correct information, whether or not it's financial data, non-financial data. It could be things like audit opinions. It could be specific revenue numbers. And why this is important is because sometimes profit is defined in 1,000 different ways across 1,000 different reports. So this is where AI comes in and accurately extracts the right piece of information. So once we get the right pieces of information together using LLMs, prompts, agents, then we push it downstream, and this enables us to do further analytics on it using, of course, AI-led systems and methods. And in our platform, we start with just the basic management reporting, where we can structure the data into dashboards, And this is where we can do additional calculations and ratios to the data sets. And from there, what we can do then is move to the third step, which is really to conduct further investigations using alerts, finding anomalies. And again, all this is done using either LLMs, BN models, or even agents. And then what we do after that in terms of the fourth step is really enable AI-generated insights, whether or not it's using Gen AI or agents to automate workflows. But all this is enabled once we get step one, which is the data extraction done. Now, if you move on to the next slide, I'm going to give you a slight peek into the platform itself for each of these four steps. The first one is about data extraction. Like I mentioned, it's both financial and non-financial data. So, and a lot of times they don't really specify the keywords, and we're looking at concepts. Our first pass accuracy is 95%, and of course that gets better as we go along. And of course, each one of those attributes that we're looking for, they're all configurable by clients because things change very often. Go to the next slide. This is where we start moving into our management dashboards. And here we can, like I said, we can start to put additional calculations or analytics on it. And we can start to see companies in a holistic manner. And then in the next slide, you can see that this is where we start to put in rules, find anomalies in terms of whether there are director changes, whether there are financial deviations, overdue reports, all that can be alerted. And again, these are all configurable by the client. And then the fourth step in the next slide that you'll see is that this is where we can start to use agents to automate certain workflows, to pull explanations together from multiple different data sources to actually come up with summaries and to come up with explanations. And all this is possible using agents and using Gen AI. Now, finally, if you go to the last slide, Nathan, this is where we got some results and benefits from this case study I'm talking about. That's about 90% increase in efficiency with the team and moving away from all the manual processes that they needed to do. And also, like I mentioned, 95% extraction accuracy in terms of getting the data out from the documents that they needed. And whether it's annual reports, news media, research information, all that is extractable. And so just to close, Nathan, if you go to the last slide, these are my contact details at the bottom. If you have any questions or if you wanted to get in touch, please send me an email or give me a call. And thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Ken. Right on time. Next up, we have Nick from Persona.
Hey guys, how good is compliance? I'm Nick. I'm one of the co-founders here at Persona. So we're an all-in-one AML compliance platform. So we work with mid-market organizations across financial services, digital assets, superannuation, and now professional services, who are all looking for smarter, pretty much clearer ways to understand and manage their AML risk. So what we focus on at Persona is not just helping organizations do compliance, but more importantly, helping them prove compliance. And that distinction is becoming increasingly important. Next slide. Across every vertical we work with, the priorities seem to be really consistent. So teams want to be able to automate compliance. They want to reduce operational spend and onboard customers faster without compromising due diligence. But increasingly, the biggest challenge and the one that has become pretty critical for us as we speak to clients is the ability to prove it, essentially. And Tim, you made a great point earlier. Regulators are expecting more transparency. Boards are always expecting more oversight, and organizations just need evidence, not just fragmented data. So this is where Persona sort of stands apart. And our platform sort of creates that end-to-end, fully explainable audit trail of every check, pretty much every decision, and every risk signal. So instead of manually piecing together evidence under pressure, you have a complete and defensible compliance narrative available pretty much instantly. It means that teams can no longer worry about whether they can justify a decision. They know they just simply can. And in the next slide, so AML operations usually spans, dozens of processes and tools. and across, AML screening, UBO discovery, document verification, the list goes on, even suspicious matter reporting and policy hosting. And what we found is that the complexity itself isn't the real problem. Australia has some incredible professionals. The real problem that we have identified is that the people have told us essentially is that none of these tasks naturally come together to form a clear and unified story of compliance. So that's what essentially Persona solves. So we streamline these processes into a single framework where everything is traceable, explainable, and most importantly, consistent. So instead of scattered systems, manual reconciliation, organizations get pretty much a coherent risk of their compliance narrative, one that often stands scrutiny every single time. And in the next slide, this is regularly highlighted by a few of our clients, and I've picked two as great examples. So Novati is an ASX listed payments company, and we essentially help them scale their compliance across all of their subsidiaries, both here in Australia and globally, so they could scale confidently knowing that their compliance wasn't at risk, essentially. And similarly to the agency, which is a big real estate agency company across Australia, we help their end-to-end approach, giving their whole team certainty across every regulatory transaction as well. And the theme is consistent across all industries as well. And our main focus is delivering that sort of clarity through proof, essentially. And then the next slide. So Persona's modular design means that organizations can support onboarding, compliance management, and then reporting in a really structured and auditable way. So think of it as the gap between what you're going to say to the regulator and then what you're actually doing in real time. So for individuals and companies, we handle that document verification, the biometrics, the fraud detection, corporate registry checks, not only here in Australia, but globally as well, allowing you to unlock that sort of UBO discovery, AML screening, and risk analysis, sort of all captured in one easy to read narrative as well on one profile, helping those compliance operation teams. We also support the ability to host your AML program, not creation, the ability for independent reviews to exist on our platform too, employee training, and then risk assessments, each versioned and traceable. And for reporting, each AML activity, regulatory submission, and transactional report is recorded in a way that forms part of a complete compliance history. So this modular approach ensures that every stage contributes to a single unified source of truth, making compliance so much easier and far easier to prove to regulators. And on the next slide, it sort of dives a little bit deeper into some more of our capabilities. And essentially, we have flexible onboarding flows that sort of combine a lot of those pieces that I mentioned in one singular flow. So it means that you get a really good audit trail and a seamless experience for your customers. And on the next slide, essentially, if you already have a process, you capture it, you send it to us, and we then send you the result too. And then on the next slide, and it means that there's multiple different ways you can use our platform, whether that's all full platform use, embedded flows, or even APIs. So no matter what use case, we have a way for you use and interconnect our platform into your systems as well. So think it as one system, one audit trail, and one compliance story. Next slide. So yeah, thanks again for joining. Have a great Christmas season. If you'd like to explore a little bit more about how Persona can support your organization, I'll drop my details in the chat later. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. All right, next up, we've got Tanuja from MCO. The floor is yours.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tanuja, the Sales Director, Asia Pacific in my compliance office, the leading single unified compliance management system and a strategic long-servicing system partner for many regulated firms across the globe. I thought of kickstarting our session with something that's known and relevant to all of us. As we look ahead to 2026, ASIC is signaling one of the biggest shifts to its compliance, conflicts of interest expectations in the years. With the proposed updates to the Regulatory Guide 181, ASIC is making one message unmistakably clear. Conflicts, whether it's actual, perceived, or even potential, are now on a frontline priority. The regulators are widening its lenses, scrutinizing every corner of a financial services businesses, and ensuring that everyone's staying ahead of the regulatory landscape. And to meet this expectation, ASIC has proposed a simple four-step framework. First, identify conflicts early and understand the materiality and risks they pose. Second, assess their impact. How does this conflict create harms to firms, consumers, investors, or market? Third, respond decisively with controls that genuinely work and remediate quickly when they don't. The fourth part, simple, implement, embed this discipline across the organization through board governance, oversight, staff training, monitoring systems, and real accountability. Now, the ASIC stance isn't prescriptive. It's pretty clear. It's principle-based. And every licensee must build proportionate risk-based frameworks that reflect the size, complexity, and potential consequences of getting this wrong. And now this is where technology and automation become critical. Next slide, please. My compliance office directly addresses this gap by aligning to every step of ASIC's proposed framework. The first step, identify. We can do this through our Know Your Obligation suite of solution. Embedded within it is the Compliance Risk Manager, where business managers can record conflicts risk, track their materiality, maintain associated controls, and keep an ongoing log of change. This ensures every conflict is captured at its sources and linked to the right governance artifacts. Next slide, please. The next step is assess. And now on the assess bit, my compliance office helps firms assess conflicts through structured, repeatable risk assessments, ongoing evaluations to determine whether the conflict could be manifest. Control testings are needed to support ASIC's requirements for proportionate risk-based judgment. Next slide, please. Respond. When conflicts arise in practice, MCO's Know Your Transaction and Know Your Employee suites enables firms to review alerts, creates one-off tasks, scheduled tasks, open cases, and track remediation actions end-to-end, ensuring conflicts are not only identified but actively monitored. Next slide, please. And the last step, implement. For organizational embedding, the fourth step, the critical step, is really ensuring compliance. MCO's role and responsibility module documents senior leadership accountabilities, committee memberships, fit and proper assessments, training records, and control test plans. This gives firms the governance backbone needed to demonstrate conflict oversight. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All of this sits within our unified compliance infrastructure. We are encompassing 4 solution suites: Know Your Obligation, Know Your Employee, Know Your Third Party, Know Your Transactions, each addressing different aspects of compliance functions within MCO. Firm chooses MCO because it's scalable, configurable, and built to unify compliance across business lines. We are industry-leading RegTech provider with continuous investments made to our innovation, 100% privately owned, deep APAC implementation expertise, and enterprise-grade security. Next slide, please. Our platform is designed to adapt to evolving regulatory demands, exactly like what ASIC's 2026 expectation is. With MCO, that shifts to a unified intelligent compliance infrastructure, strengthens visibility, reduces operational risks, and embeds governance across organization. Next slide, please. Today, many organizations we speak to rely heavily on multiple approaches, whether it's manual processes, multi-systems, disparate systems, and there are various risks to that, particularly around operational blind spots. This makes conflicts harder to identify, and this is where MCO truly comes in to really automate the process, mitigate risks, centralize the compliance oversight. Next slide, please. These are some of the clients that we're covering as we speak today. Next slide, please. Just wanted to end the note by stating that as ASIC raises the bar, conflicts management can no longer be a checkbox exercise. It has to be a strategic capability and potentially a need to stay ahead of the landscape, proactively responding to conflict changes, conflict mitigation. MCO enables firms to meet this moment with confidence, scale with structure, and supporting over 1,500 customers across 128 countries. To learn more, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to assist you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanuja. Sorry, I think your slides were living a life of their own there. Next up, we have Michael from LexisNexis. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Nathan. Welcome and good afternoon to everyone who's in a time zone where afternoon works. My name is Michael Nelson. As you can see on the screen, I'm the Customer Experience Manager with the LexisNexis Regulatory Compliance Solution. Next slide, please. As you've heard from the previous speakers, there's a lot going on when it comes to risk and compliance. I recently saw something from Michael Rasmussen, who commented that what we're trying to achieve, and I think this is an OCAG definition, through governance, risk and compliance, is that the governance should look at reliably achieving our objectives. The risk should address uncertainty, and the compliance section allows us to act with integrity. And I think that while we all are striving to achieve that, one of the problems that we face in Australia particularly, but more broadly in APAC and across the world, is the fact that there's a lot to take in to try and bring all that into one coherent story, both that we can tell internally to our internal stakeholders and externally to our customers on the one hand and to our regulators on the other. What we see here is a familiar snapshot to people who have been to one of these sessions before with me. It's a snapshot of regulatory change that took place across Australia last year. And as you can see on the table on the left, that number is, if anything, a little on the low side. But this just tells you about the changes that have occurred in a given year. It doesn't tell you about all of the underlying frameworks of legislation, regulation, guidelines and standards and so on that we're all already paying attention to. Next slide, please. So how do we manage this a lot? One solution, although it's increasingly falling away and becoming a little less common than it used to, is a DIY solution. You task colleagues internally, whether it's risk and compliance or SMEs in various areas, to scope the landscape. You talk to your internal counsel or a panel law firm to build you an obligation register, and between those two elements, you try and do it yourself. Now, as we saw on the previous slide, that's becoming increasingly difficult. And that's just for organizations who are solely affected by legislation and regulation in Australia. If you're looking at other jurisdictions, legislation and regulation, that becomes infinitely more complicated. There is a solution, however. Next slide. The regulatory compliance solution at LexisNexis is built on the experience that we've had over the course of the last 200 years in creating meaningful legal research tools for the legal profession. We create the same frameworks and structures and the same levels of expertise and direct that to the management of regulatory compliance. The content that we have has always been and will always be viewed and written, drafted, managed and released by people with legal training. Of late, however, we have transitioned to a new platform. But nonetheless, the quality of the content remains the same. It's the same planet, but quite different worlds, if that makes sense. Obligations in one place, alerts allow you to track reg change, better ways of managing the content and dashboards that allow you to report internally and externally your risk and compliance status. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, we have a new platform. For anyone familiar with LexisNexis Regulatory Compliance Framework up till now, you'll see on the screen there's been something of a step change. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned before, it's the same quality of content. The key difference that we now have in our platform is the capacity to allow you to shape and form the flow of data that you get from us. You can isolate and track particular sets of obligations. You can isolate and track obligations affected by a particular piece of legislation. You can do what you were previously able to do, nominate risks, nominate owners, assign controls, and so on. But the way that you can shape that data and surface that data in a variety of new and interesting ways makes it so much easier to identify, so much easier to manage, so much easier to track, and so much easier to report. Next slide, please. Likewise, as you saw before, there's a lot of regulatory change. We've created an environment where you can manage that flow of data. You can sort by area of law. You can sort by the kind of alert that we're sending you, whether it's horizon scanning or whether it's just happened now, or whether it's a summary of the changes that we've made to the registers over the course of their response to regulatory change. You can sort by impact rating, whether the legislative reforms are materially going to impact your organization and the resources that you need to devote to a particular area, or whether they don't. And likewise, you can assign risks around a particular alert and assign owners to manage that and track that as well. Next slide, please. Finally, you won't be surprised to hear that AI now plays a role in this. We have a new Gen AI solution called Protege that has been built on the success of the work we've done in legal research, but it's been shaped and directed towards the needs that we have as risk and compliance professionals. It only looks at the content that we write. It doesn't expand its search beyond what we've got into the farthest corners of the internet. So it allows you to ask questions as if it were an intelligent but relatively inexperienced intern. Tell me about this, summarize that. Tell me the risks about this. What's the recent reg change around that? Please give me a risk heat map around these particular changes, and it will generate that and importantly show you its workings so you can see the sources that it's leaned on when it's generated that result. Next slide, please. And finally, of course, we work with you. One of the key elements that we've seen is that every organization has quite different needs and quite different resources when it comes to rolling this out. So we work with you to identify what you need to achieve, who needs to be part of the team, verify what we're working on, test those assumptions, work with you if you're working with a channel partner where this information can flow, and finally support you in terms of ongoing training and support and a better identification and meeting your needs as well. Next slide, please. To learn a little more, please raise your phone to the screen, snap the QR code, and we look forward to hearing from you if you have any further questions. Final slide. Thank you very much indeed for your afternoon. Nathan, I will bounce back to you.
Thanks, Michael. And thank you to all of our presenters. If you'd like to watch any of today's event again, keep an eye on your inbox. The recording will be sent out tomorrow along with the deck. I'm just going to put a quick poll up on the screen there. I would really appreciate it if you just take a moment to punch in a number for us. This helps us track and improve our programs. And also, just quickly before I sign off, earlier this week we launched our new individual membership category. This is designed for professionals who want to stay close to the latest in RegTech and SupTech developments. It will give these members access to our members-only RegTech Insiders newsletter, new courses that are in the works, and complimentary or discounted tickets to RTA events and more. If you are one of our organizational members, you already have access to all of that. If you are interested, head over to our website for more information, or you can reach out to me and I can send that information through to you. So just to wrap up, just wanted to say a big thank you for all of you for being part of the RTA community this year. It is your support and participation that makes this ecosystem what it is. So I hope you all enjoy a well-earned holiday break. We look forward to connecting with you all in the new year. Speaking of, keep an eye out on your emails for an invitation to our 2026 kickoff in-person networking events. We'll be hosting them in Sydney, London, and New York around mid-February. Hope to see you there. Thanks again for joining us today, and take care.